We ended up doing like a $700,000 launch with my movies at that time, which was like far exceeded anyone's expectation. Our target was $1 million in our My Movie that we created for that launch, and that was just really ambitious. But 700,000, we're kind of happy with it. But we had to use PayPal as our payment gateway because we're Australian, when our company's in Australia. And because of the economic crisis and a whole bunch of stuff that was going on, they froze the account. So we couldn't actually get to the money.
Boom, we're live. Natalie, how are you?
I am fantastic. It's a Saturday afternoon. It's a beautiful weekend, and the sun is shining. So I'm a happy girl.
You walked in here with the beautiful earrings, you're looking fantastic, and you just have this aura, this happiness aura. You're drinking some juice. I want to know what it is.
It's life, darling. No, it's life, and I am so grateful every single day when I wake up. I grew up I'm one of 8 kids from a country town in Australia, and I get to live here in LA. I get to change the lives of millions of people around the world. I get to do what I feel passionate about, and I feel like I'm making a change and I'm contributing and I'm living my purpose. So, every day above ground is a fantastic day for me.
Was it always like that for you? Did you always have that mindset, or was there a certain turning point that you felt like you kind of unlocked this, like that inner just charge?
I've always been a happy person. And I've always seen the brighter side in everything. That's just been my disposition. But I've always been driven too. Like when I was 18 and old enough, I was the hell out of my country town and moved to Sydney. I didn't know one person there, but I knew I just had to get out of my country town.
So what part of Australia were you from?
So the town I'm from is called Orange.
Okay.
It's about 3.5 hours west of Sydney.
That's a great name.
Right? And there's lots of orchards, no orange orchards, unfortunately, but lots of cherries and apples and vineyards and things. So it's a really cool place to go and visit. But I knew I had to expand and to grow. And even when I look at my 20s, I was working in the fitness industry, and I was always, changing jobs and working for the best people in the industry that was spending money and really looking at, investing in their employees. I started managing fitness clubs when I was 21 years old.
Wow.
And I had no idea what I was doing. I talked my way into that job and just figured it out when I get there. And part of one of my mottos for life is it's an Australian saying, and it's like, I just bite off more than I can chew, and then I just chew like hell.
So you take action and think about it afterwards.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I'm definitely an action taker. And when I'd met my husband, I'd been in the fitness industry for 11 years, and I'm like, I need a change. And then my husband said, yes, we've just bought a nightclub. I'm like, that's not the change I thought I would be taking. But what was really interesting is that everything that I had learned from working for these other people in their businesses in fitness, in a service industry, was applicable to the nightclub. We were all about making sure that it didn't matter what person any of our clients got to have a contact with, whether it's the cloakroom girl or the glassy or the bar person. Every touch that they had was pleasant. They knew that when they came into our club, they would hear a certain style of music. We were able to manage their expectations, and then all of those things that we picked up in service in the fitness industry, I could apply to this. So we were the number one club for 4 of the 5 years that we had that club in Sydney. And even when we sold the club, all of our team said, whatever you do next, we'll come and work for you.
That's amazing, because running a good club is very challenging. I mean, out of everything that went through that process, was there a certain factor that you struggled with the most with that whole, just the club itself?
For me personally, in the beginning, I really struggled with going from a career where I felt like I was at the top of my game. I was 24 and speaking on stage to club owners from all over Australia going, this is how you manage your team, this is how you systemize your business. I went from that to like a life of significance to a nightclub, creating an environment for people to go out and take drugs and have a very unhealthy lifestyle. And people would always treat me with respect, but only because I owned a nightclub. I'm like, that is not a reason to respect me. So personally, I struggled with that a little bit.
But you saw it from 2 completely different sides. You saw, the fitness side. You saw what businesses can be, but I'm sure it taught you everything that you know today.
Well, everything. And I think the extra layer that I learned from being in the nightclub is that when you're around in an environment where there's a lot of cash and there's a lot of...
it can get sketchy, right?
It can get sketchy. And drugs and alcohol and everything else that goes along with that. I mean, this was a house music, club back in the 90s. You get to see a lot about human nature. You get to learn a lot about people and even the best people, when they're in a situation where their back's against the wall and they don't have their money to pay their electricity bill and there is a tray full of cash in front of them, it takes someone of very strong character to not be tempted by that.
Very interesting, because a lot of people that are, drinking continuously or doing drugs continuously sometimes are doing it to feel very comfortable. So they finally feel comfortable when they're in the club on all those substances, and you can see how they act. But it's almost like maybe some of those people want to act like that without having to do any of that. So it just must be interesting personalities.
It is. And I think that people would go out and they drink or they take drugs or do whatever for different reasons.
For sure.
If you can see the ones that are going to do it as a form of escape, you get concerned about those people. If you're doing it like a lot of my friends and we were doing back in the day, it was like drinking. We'd go out, we'd have fun on the weekends, but that was its place and that was its purpose. But you could see the ones that were relying on it for a little bit more than that was a bit sketchy.
Yeah, but I bet there's some good times that came out of all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had drag queens on Friday nights and lesbians on Sunday nights, and it was,
So you were an open book to everything. You cannot be offended. You've seen it all. You've done everything.
Absolutely. And I'm an Australian, so for me, it's like, I don't get so concerned about that. I'm not judgmental at all. I'm an Aquarian, so I love the variety of humans. I love, even when I travel, I like to meet the people that live there and grew up there and learn about their culture and what it was like to live in that country. So for me, it's like the more I can learn about humans, the more I feel I'm more equipped to be a human.
And all of your life travels and meeting with people, because there's two types of travel. There's the luxury travel, and then there's the in the felt type of travel. Which is the country that you just admire the most?
I think the country that really surprised me was Brazil, because, we were there for Carnival. Have to do that
Carnival?
once. I did Carnival.
Your life is awesome. Well played.
Yeah. So what I realized that these people have nothing. Like, they have nothing. They really are poor. I mean, there are 5 huge favelas in Rio alone. And Carnival is actually the people from the favelas putting on the show. So their whole year culminates to this one event. And their routines are amazing and their costumes are spectacular. But these people have nothing. But you don't see beggars because they're all doing something to earn money. They're either running up in the middle of the traffic with snacks, or they're walking along the beach selling, earrings made from coconut husks. They're doing something and they're all happy. That's what used to blow me away. I'm like, these people have nothing, but they are exceptionally happy. And they're just happy with whatever it is that they're doing. And that was quite remarkable.
Do you think that culture can be replicated, or is that something you have to grow into?
I don't know why they're so happy. And I didn't get deep enough to be able to know that. And I think that when we look at, like, even here in the US, there is a difference between here and Australia. And I was with a girlfriend of mine the other day, and she's living in Ecuador. She was staying with me for a couple of days. We're in the grocery store, and she's like, I keep forgetting about the choice that we have here. And I think sometimes when we don't have a foundation of knowing who we are, what we stand for, what's important to us, and we have thrown all these choices in front of us, then we start to get to a place where we're either discontent or we're unhappy, or, we don't know what we're doing. And I think really having that strong foundation of self-awareness can really help to navigate through, the life over here.
It's so true. I mean, Brazilians, in my experience, are the biggest partiers. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
went to a few Brazilian parties, and damn, like everyone at all ages. I think it was like a 6-year-old's birthday party. I was like the only technically white person there, and it was a blast. One of the best parties I've ever been to, and it was celebrating like a 4-year-old. Just a good vibe. Everyone loved each other. Everyone was happy. It's like, it's good. Life is good. Relaxed. It's
Yeah.
so great when you're in that culture.
Well, we had an incredible experience, a once-in-a-lifetime experience, where we were staying at the Intercontinental Hotel, And that year, the Miss Universe was Australian, Jennifer Hawkins. And she walked into the hotel while we're there around the poolside. She was doing a photo shoot. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Jennifer Hawkins. So, my girlfriend had a couple of drinks. She's like, Jennifer, hi, it's us. Anyway, so she came over and said hi. And then after she'd left, we had one friend who could speak Portuguese that was with us, who was Brazilian. And he said, the staff wanted us to go to a party. Jennifer has invited us. We're like, okay. I mean, this stuff happens to us all the time. We're like, we didn't question it. So we're walking along and we're walking out of the hotel and they're leading us towards one of the favelas. And I'm like, whoa, where are we going? They go, it's okay. This favela, their school won the division and they're doing the party, but the party is here at the base. And we're like, okay. So we walk in. It's like this open air stadium kind of thing. And people are just going nuts. And we were the only white people there again. So we get up to one of the mezzanine levels and we're looking over. And when you see sometimes in the movie how someone will bust a move on the dance floor and people will stand back and just, watch and clap. That was happening on the dance floor. It was crazy. And it was so funny. All these people kept getting introduced to us and having photos taken with us. I'm like, this is so strange. What's happening? And we found out from our friend that the staff from the hotel had basically said that we were Jennifer's cousins because we're Australian and used us to get them into VIP for this party.
That's great. What a good cover.
Yeah.
When I was living in Medellin in Colombia, I realized something so amazing is that the dance culture there was so different in the sense that people of all ages, mothers, grandmas, daughters would all go out to the club, would all celebrate together. And that's part of the culture. And I felt that they were so much happier. And that just being part of that culture was very cool.
Yeah. I think when you can, and even with my family, like I'm coming from a big family, like when we get together, we'll dress up, we'll, play ABBA, like we'll dance around.
What is ABBA?
ABBA, the band, ABBA,
okay.
from the 70s.
Gotcha.
I know it's a little bit before your time, darling, but...
Dang. I got to get educated.
But they're like a disco band from the 70s. But, we'll have fun and have wild abandon and we'll tap into that childlike part of us because, we're used to being like that around each other. So and I think, with these families like in Colombia and Brazil, I think that the family unit is so tight and so loving that they can tap into that.
Unlocking that child part is so difficult. But not at the same time because it seems so simple, right? But it seems like as you grow up, in general, across the board, people get more sad, people get more problems, etc. But it's the people that are still smiling, still curious as hell at the small little things, whether it be, a strawberry or a salamander, anything that fascinates you, that childlike curiosity, we need to bring that out more.
Yeah. I remember last year, I had a friend of mine said to me, he said, look, what brings you joy? And I said, my job and, what I'm doing and I'm working with kids. And he goes, no, not work. He goes, what do you have in your life that brings you joy? And I actually struggled to think of something. I'm like, all I'm doing is working right now. And so now I've made a point of making sure that I am including joy in my everyday, whether that's...
So you become aware of including joy.
Yeah, and it's not just through the activities, but it's through mindfulness practice as well. Like I'll sit out on my balcony and I was saying this is a new place that I've just moved into and I've done a whole lot of renovations there. But when I sit there and I'm looking at the water, I'm dropping into joy, I'm dropping into gratitude because I'm like, sometimes I still pinch myself that this is my life,
Do you feel that it's important every day when you wake up? Do you do an exercise to put yourself into that headspace?
Yeah, I have a whole morning routine. So when I wake up in the morning, I have a little ritual that I do, and because I work a lot with Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's how we met our mutual friend Anton.
Shout out Anton.
Yes. And we know that as we're going to sleep and as we're waking up, our brain is in theta brainwave activity, which means that we're very coherent with the unified field. So we're connected. So as I'm waking up in the morning and my eyes are still closed, I'll have a question that I pose, whether it's, a direction I need to take, a challenge I need to solve, whatever that is. And then I stay quiet long enough for the answer to come through. And this is when I get a lot of my inspiration. And I've had enough experience where I've been connected to, and I believe that where that inspiration is coming from is from God or from the collective. And I've had enough experiences where I've had a connection to that, to know that that is pure joy.
I'm getting deeper into the Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's blowing my mind, and I'm starting to do the meditations. I'm doing them. I've done it now consistently for 9 days, and it's tough. It's very tough to sit there for 50 minutes. Maybe because I'm so addicted to my phone, maybe because my thoughts are always wandering. We live in a generation where everyone has, ADD, ADHD, whatever you say. What do you feel is like the way for someone to truly create a habit out of that? Do you think going to one of these events is a necessity to kind of have an experience that's big enough in order to create that habit in people?
It's not a necessity, but it will definitely jumpstart you in the right direction. Because there's nothing like meditating your butt off for 7 days.
Really?
Yeah, you do 3 meditations a day. You're starting at 6 a.m., sometimes 5 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. And when you're in a room with other people that are all resonating at that frequency, the meditations are easier. The music is live. Dr. Joe is leading you through these meditations live. So it's a completely different experience, but you're actually you're feeding off the energy and the frequencies of other people in the room, which is amazing. So that when you go home, if you can do 7 days straight, then 3 meditations a day, then you can definitely do 1. So that it does help to jumpstart you.
When you achieve that peak level, when you're in your meditative state and you achieve whatever you're looking for, that ultimatum moment, and you know it, then you have a much easier time getting to it. Is that the case? Because a lot of people don't know what's possible by being consistent in the meditation. It's almost like the people that meditate all the time. Take Anton for a suggestion. It's like they were touched by God when they go deep enough. And it's some people that haven't done it, they just don't understand. They don't know what they don't know. Yeah.
I think that once you get there, you then now know how to get there again. Once you have that breakthrough, like I could tell you logically that when you go into your meditations, you want to let go. Well, unless you physically have experienced that, it's difficult for you to know what that means or how to do that. But when you're in a room of people, like, 1,000 people that are all letting go, it's easier for you to get to that place as well. So it's easier for you to then replicate at home.
I witnessed that even with Anton. We did a guided meditation at his house. 4 people were doing the Wim Hof method, where we did like 3 sets of 30 deep breaths, and it got really tribal in there. We were all breathing like, and like part of me is always a little bit like, well, like what's going on? Like I'm a little bit reserved. Part of me is not all in on it. But when I was with the other people and I realized it, I got more in on it. Absolutely. And it was amazing. It was euphoric. He had to actually let me know, like, yo, it's cool that you're shaking. Like, that's normal. So this whole move is crazy. And I'm stoked about what you've done with Mind Movies. Because for me, I got introduced to the law of attraction through the first business where actually I met Anton through Vima. And then we met Bob Proctor. And I just remember every word he sat on just blew me away. And that whole realm of law of attraction. And what you guys seem to be doing is taking law of attraction and just making a mental picture and putting it right into the skull of every single person to design exactly what they need.
Well, the thing is, remember, people are the most powerful part of a mind movie is actually making the mind movie yourself, which means you need to sit down and get clear about what it is that you want. And the process that I take people through is helping them to not just understand, yes, I want a hot car, and yes, I want a beautiful home, but what does that mean to you? Let's drill down a little bit deeper on that. What does this house, where are you living? How many bedrooms? Are you entertaining? Like, you need to be able to see yourself already there. And a mind movie, in essence, is a visualization tool. Because remember, it's not the mind movie that's creating anything, it's you. And the purpose of the mind movie is so that when you do your visualizations, you can easily put yourself there in that picture. You can see yourself already in that future because you've already created a mind movie or a movie in front of you that helps you to get there. But the secret source of a mind movie is the music.
Ooh.
Because when you're meditating or when you're visualizing, what's more important than what you see in your mind is what you feel. And when you can feel exactly what it's like to already be there in that moment. Now, we talk about the law of attraction and whatever frequency we're putting out into the universe, whatever is a vibrational match to that frequency, then comes back to us. Well, our frequency is our emotion. So if we can feel what it's like to already be in that situation or in that moment, whatever is matching that frequency and that emotion that we're putting out will then be attracted back to us. This is how we fasten up that whole manifestation process. So yes, getting clear about what you want and being able to articulate that in affirmations, then finding photos that, that enhance that, and then putting that right music that puts you into that emotional state where you can easily feel, see, taste yourself already there. That's the power of a mind movie.
I want to feel, taste, see myself already there. I'm about to get myself on this mind movie ASAP. But let's back it up real quick. So post club, what happened after that? Like, what did you do? So you sell this business? Do you go through this period of freedom where you're like, no more burdens there? Or are you like, I need to get on to my next venture?
Well, there was a little moment of, yes, thank God we don't have to go in work on weekends, which was great. But I call those years my beige years, because beige is just such a nothing color. And I felt like, after having what I felt was like significance and some, significance in the fitness industry, doing something positive, we were going through like 10 years of all these different types of businesses. And I mean everything. The nightclub, we had coffee franchises. We had the first bathroom advertising company in Australia.
Is that just due to your curiosity?
I think that both Glenn and I are action takers, and we're both entrepreneurs. And we had the skill. So we'd look at a different business idea and go, okay, well, can we do this? What's our, investment? What's our ROI? What's our exit strategy? So it was like we were going through the motions. I felt like we were just going through the motions. And yes, I mean, when you have business skill, you can apply that to any business. And we both knew that. We both had enough different business experience before we met each other, and then, of course, with each other. So
when you say business school, do you mean just your personal experience running businesses, or you actually went to some business school?
No. Well, I went to, I basically worked for people in the fitness industry who were investing money in teaching me how to be a better manager. So,
School of Hard Knocks. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
That's legit.
And Glenn, bless Glenn, he has the kind of personality where you can't work for somebody else. So he was always in his own business the whole time. But I remember we had a moment, it was 2006, and I'm sitting at a desk in Sydney and I'm looking at all the bills and I'm looking at the bank account. And at the time, Glenn and I were running 4 businesses concurrently and working really hard and still not making it financially. I'm like, I don't get it. I'm missing some vital piece of information. And not long after that, a friend of mine said, look, I think you should get this movie. You got to order it online. You get it on DVD. And the movie was called The Secret. And I had one of my bosses in the fitness industry handed me a set of cassettes when I was 21 years old by Brian Tracy. So I had been a student of, Tom Hopkins and Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins and all those guys for all of my life. So I thought I knew I was doing everything right. And then we watched the movie The Secret, and I'm looking at Glenn and we're looking at each other going, where has this been? Like, this is clearly the missing piece. And through all of those, 10, 15 years of study, I'd never heard of the law of attraction. And I realized that I'd never set myself audacious goals because I didn't see the plan. I didn't know how I was going to do it. Unless I could see it in my mind, I just wouldn't do that. And then by watching The Secret, I'm like, oh, I don't need to know the whole plan. I just need to know where I'm going to end up, be very clear about that, and just start the next step. And for Glenn, his big takeaway was that you have to add emotion to your visualization, because without emotion, it's really just a daydream.
It's interesting when certain songs peak memories very well. Do you have a really good memory?
I do have a good memory. I'm good with names. I remember the most ridiculous, innate information about movies and songs, and I know the lyrics to every song. I'll hear a song a couple of times, I can pick the lyrics up pretty quickly, but it's not useful information. It's just fun. But yeah, no, I do have a good memory.
It's interesting though that you're using that music to stimulate the senses, to stimulate creating these movies. What was the easiness of scaling that thing? So was it, how many people did you co-found it with? Just you and Glenn?
So yeah, a friend of ours, Ryan, approached us with the idea of setting up a website. And this is when we had the 4 businesses.
And you were very non-technologically savvy.
Oh, Glenn couldn't even turn on a computer. That's how technically non-savvy we were. And I hadn't heard of YouTube, or I hadn't heard of Facebook or anything. I didn't understand what those concepts were. And our friend Ryan's like, it's okay, I'll teach you. We're like, okay. And we put this, video together, which, we didn't know at the time because we did not know what we were doing, which was completely illegal, with, the beginning of I Dream of Jeannie and all commercial music. But that one video The first day we put it up and, crickets, nothing's happening. But the second day it was up, we had 3 sales. And we didn't know what to charge because we were basically selling instructions,
To the software?
No, so we didn't even own software.
It's like a purchase order of sorts.
Well, yeah, so basically the product was, okay, buy this product, $20 I think we were charging in the beginning, and we'll show you where to get free video creation software and how to create PowerPoint slides and then how to find photos and then music and how to put that all together. So it was really instructions on how to use somebody else's software. That's how we got started. And, once we started getting all these, sales and these emails from people saying, look, this is really changing my life. We're like, okay, we're onto something here, guys. We need to pay attention. How do we do this internet thing? Because at the time, all we had was that one video. Then we realized you can actually purchase programs that teach you how to do the internet marketing thing. We're like, revelation. So we bought a program by a guy called Frank Kern. And Frank is one of the leading, internet marketers out there. And I think we paid $2,000 for the program. We made that back with the first email campaign that we did from that product. And then Frank announced he was doing a live event in April of 2008 in San Diego. And in Glenn's original Mind movie, one of his affirmations was that we live in an endless summer. He's like, perfect. We'll just spend 6 months in California and 6 months in Sydney. We're like, all right. So we came over, we went to that initial seminar. At that weekend, we were accepted into Frank's Mastermind group, which was, $2,700 a month that we didn't have, but we knew that we needed to, he was just a genius. We needed to be aligned with him. And then even the people that we'd met there our friends were all internet marketers. So, we were sponges even in social situations, we were learning the entire time. And so we spent 6 months of just really, we had no money. We were living on credit cards. So much so that by the time we got to the launch, which was September 2008, we'd accumulated $120,000 on credit cards.
Oof.
Yeah, it was, and this is September 2008. Economic crisis has hit the planet. We don't know because we've been working 12 hours from our bedrooms, learning how to edit videos and build websites because we didn't have the money to pay anyone.
Are you feeling that stress at that time? Is that burden sitting on your shoulders, or are you still just gung-ho forward? It'll all work out.
Yes, it was completely stressful, and not just with the accumulation of debt, but, having to learn all these skills. I'm 40 at the time, learning how to edit videos from the help contents, I'm just, and so far outside of my comfort zone. And there is nothing else I've done in my life that I could even relate back to this, So we were really floundering.
It was a whole new language for you.
A whole new everything.
It's so impressive that you had the diligence to do that. I mean, people in college can't even edit videos. It's challenging.
Yeah. Well, you do what you got to do. But we knew the idea was good. And we had surrounded ourselves with people that we respected their opinion. So not only were they giving us great advice on how to do the launch and how to do certain things, but whenever we needed support and we needed to get someone to tell us, don't bullshit us, tell us straight, blah, 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 that we had the right people around us. So we had enough validation from people that we really trusted their opinion. And we, with the launch, there's 2 weeks. The first week is the pre-launch. So this is where, and we had JV managers that honestly, they agreed to work on a percentage of the launch because we had no money to pay them up front. They were able to get a whole bunch of affiliates together for us. So they're sending out emails and we're starting to build our list. Our list grew from 8,000 when we started at the beginning of the week to 80,000. And it grew that quickly that the company who shall remain nameless, that was our email delivery service, shut down our account because they were convinced we were doing something illegal. We had to get Frank on the phone and
this has been years since the nightclub. What's going on?
Exactly. So we had that. And then, of course, the same said company decides to shut down for maintenance the morning of the launch. So we have 80,000 people. We're trying to stagger the traffic. We couldn't do that. We ended up, no one was getting the confirmation emails. They purchased a program. So by lunchtime the first day, we had 3,000 customer support emails. I mean, we'd hit $100,000 in the first hour. So at least I'm like, okay, credit cards are paid. It's all good.
Walk us through that first hour.
That first hour was that, again, we realized that Weber had shut down for maintenance and we're like, what's going to happen? But there was enough emails that had gone out for people to come in. So thank God, because, that did help a lot. But every time we'd hit the refresh button, there'd be a new big number. And I think the first day we ended up on about $288,000 on the first day.
Oh my gosh.
And this is a $97 program. No upsells, no, just straight $97. So by about 5 o'clock, we're calling all of our friends saying, come on over, we're having a hit the refresh button party. So, so we go, come on, you have a go. So someone else will hit the button and then another big number it'll be. We're like, yay. So it was relief. It was validation. And I knew that, we were a success. But even before we went into that when we started selling, Frank said to us, he goes, guys, you have an 80,000 list. He said, it's over. He goes, it doesn't matter what happens now. He says, you now have a viable business. We're like, oh, we hadn't thought about that.
Is the list the X factor in internet marketing at the end of the day?
Well, I mean, it's not as effective as it used to be, but yeah, it's your currency. Mm-hmm. This is your influence. Now, influence comes in a lot of different avenues, with Instagram and Facebook and so forth. But yeah, when you have your email list, not only are you able to communicate and build a really good rapport with this community, but you also can promote other programs that you earn a commission for.
Taking that step to join that mastermind, what a huge step in your life. Very scary. I mean, some of the gurus out there, per se, can charge up to $10,000 a month to take their courses. But when you're surrounded by all those people, that's chump change. When you have that ability with all of these people, just to learn and grow. And that's what you've done better than probably many of the people I've ever met in my life. Your circle is so brilliant, which is why I'm so grateful that you're here with me. I'm like, damn, guys, look at me. I'm with Natalie, But it's just like, do you feel like having that circle is so crucial for any type of entrepreneur, any type of business owner, just to get on the right path?
Absolutely. I remember on the flight on the way over, I was sitting next to Glenn. I go, right, here's the plan. I go, we need to meet this Frank guy and somehow convince us to mentor us because the guy's a genius. And then we need to meet other internet marketers and we need to just be in that world. Like, let's just immerse ourselves. So when Frank announced he was doing a mastermind and you had to apply, I was like, master manifester. I can't believe I manifested this already. And I was sitting there filling out the application form and Glenn and Brian are sitting next to me. And they're having this conversation like, oh, should we do it? Is it a scam? Like, will we get the help we need? Will we actually get access to him? And they're doubting and going back and forth. And I'm just filling out the form. And I just get up and start to walk away. And they're like, where are you going? I go, guys, are you kidding me? This is why we're here. We're getting accepted into this group. And I just walked off. And I think Ryan said to Glenn, he goes, mate, she's your wife. And he goes, what do you think? I can control her? But, they have many times said since then that it was the smartest thing we ever did.
Damn, and never in your wildest dreams did you ever expect this, which is a great segue to your best-selling book. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I knew I had a book in me and I wanted to write a book. And the way that I think is I think in systems. One of the gifts that I have is that I can get an esoteric subject like law of attraction and then be able to break it down into actionable steps so anyone can duplicate the success. This is my gift. And so when I found my publisher goes, look, I think you should write fiction. And I went, what? I don't even read fiction. I don't think I can write fiction. She goes, yes, people remember stories, blah, blah, blah. This is what you should do. This is what's, selling right now. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I didn't know how to do that. And I used to have a show online called The Inspiration Show. And I remember doing an interview with a guy who created a documentary called Finding Joe, which was a tribute to Joseph Campbell. And I'm like, oh, and he was talking about the hero's journey, which is a formula on how to tell stories. So if you're watching Star Wars or Matrix or any of these kind of movies,
breaks it down to the formula.
This is the formula. And I remember halfway, because I was a little bit hungover when I was doing this interview before, and that came into my mind. I'm like, maybe my book should follow this formula. So once I had, taken out the 12 steps of the hero's journey, the lessons that I wanted to teach and was able to put them, in big paper across the windows in my office. Once I had it all laid out, it took me 2 weeks to write the book. It just came out. It just fell out. And
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Damn.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a writer?
Yeah, words are my jam.
Words are your jam. You're a wordsmith? I'm
a wordsmith. Yeah, I do. I write a lot. We do a lot of content and a lot of things with my movies, and that word and how to articulate it is really what I enjoy. And when you read the book, you can, now that you've had a conversation with me, when you read the book, you went, oh, Natalie definitely wrote this because it is really in my language. And
well, you're very authentic and you can't make that up. You are you. Like you just embody yourself. And that's very empowering to everyone listening right now. I mean, just to achieve that level of comfort with yourself, such a gift. So in terms of the actual Mind movie, how long is a typical Mind movie and how long does it typically take to create one?
The first one normally is the longest, because you're kind of working the technology and the software that we've created now to make your Mind movie. There's a whole, library of affirmations and photos and music, everything inside the software. And you can also import your own. But the first one, you're kind of fiddling around a little bit, and normally that can take about an hour. But once you've figured that out, then, it takes me 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes if I'm spending a bit of extra time. Normally your Mind movie is the length of a song. Some people like to have multiple songs in their Mind movie. I like just to have one and like to listen to it all the way to the end. And, through the Dr. Joe Dispenza workshops, I have personally helped thousands of people make their Mind movie. And the cool thing about this is there are no rules. I've seen people use heavy metal music. I've seen people use, opera. Oh, look, just all different styles of music and different ways that they, they'd like to articulate what it is that they want to do. But the one thing that I have witnessed more than anything else is that when people come in and normally, Dr. Joe's crowd are a little bit older, so they're a little bit technically challenged. But once I actually show them how to do that and they get to the end and we preview their Mind movie before we send it off to the processor, more often than not, they're in tears. Because it's for when you see a Mind movie and you can see your life articulated in that way, what it does to build your belief that you can actually make that happen, and that when you see this beautiful, life that you're creating depicted in a movie like that, it's very moving.
It's so cool that you're doing something that, is truly impacting people. I mean, what would happen to a child that since the day they were born, they were told they can do something versus they can't? So powerful, so real, and it's like, if I could just program my mind and do that, like that smile you're doing right now, it's so genuine and real, because I know that you're working on personal development in a much bigger field. You're trying to change the whole education system, and it needs a changing, okay? Tell us a little bit about personal development and how you're looking towards helping the children, because I know your school right now, I believe, is helping 10,000 people in Colombia. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that project is over, but that's how this whole thing got started. And, I created the children's version of the Mind movie software. So, the photos are more apt for kids, and, the categories on affirmations, rather than find your perfect partner, which is not relative to a 10-year-old, we put more, categories like, education and sport and family and things that are relevant to them. But once I'd created that, I'm thinking, I have no idea what to do. It's like, who do I market to kids? But I just had this really strong download that I had to create this version. And then, to cut a really long story short, I ended up on a phone call with the dean of the biggest university in Medellin in Colombia. And we had committed to donating 10,000 Mind Movies for Kids accounts. But he asked me to create a curriculum so the teachers could teach it in the classroom to, supplement with Mind Movies. I'm like, okay. And I go, well, what do you need? And he goes, well, 12 lessons and homework for the parents, and we want to introduce them and address bullying and early school dropout. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Okay, great. Okay. So I hang up the phone and then I start to freak out. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I know how to teach, law of attraction to adults, but, I don't have kids. Like, kids are different. And I'm like, I left school when I was 15. I don't even know, and then I go into this story about I'm not worthy. I can't do this. And then I'm like, okay, stop yourself, Natalie. So then I do what I teach everyone else. And I sit down and I do a visualization, and I can see myself walking into the classroom in Colombia. And I can hear the children, they're screaming and they're laughing, and I can feel them tugging on my clothes. And I'm talking to the teacher, and she has tears coming down her face about how much this information has really helped to change their lives and how they actually have hope. And so when I come out of that visualization, I'm like, okay, what's my first step? What's the first thing I need to do? And so I reached out to a girlfriend of mine who was a teacher at a Montessori school, and I said, okay, are these kind of laid out in a certain way so I look like I know what I'm doing? And she sent me the outline of a curriculum, and so I was able to create that. And then from there, once we had done that, I'm like, everyone's like, well, what happens after the 12 lessons? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know how I got this together. And so, I remember last year, looking at my mind movie, and I had, a TV show I was developing, writing a new book, and the kids program, and of course my movies. And I realized that I'd got nowhere on each of these projects. And I'm like, okay, I need to focus on one. And I'm looking at the kids program and go, well, it's not going to be that because, I'm not qualified. And, into my little story, and I'm like, TV show's way sexier
the lies
anyway.
We tell ourselves.
Right. And then 2 days later, a girlfriend of mine who's worked, in refugee camps with kids in trauma around the world. She's a child psychologist and has 2 master's degrees, and she's amazing human being. And she said, I want to really help you with this curriculum. Let's do it. I'm like, okay.
Oh, wow.
So now, we've created 280 lessons.
Damn.
So it's from 5 years old to 18. And this is not law of attraction. We're not teaching that. We're teaching what kids need these days, because when you think about it, the world in which they are growing up is vastly different to the world that we did. With the internet comes with it. They understand what's happening around the world. They understand climate change. They're concerned about the planet. It's really upsetting them. They get into overwhelm, and then they, rather than having the right skills and the tools to get them out of that and help them to self-regulate their emotion, they're numbing out with video games or with social media or with online or TV or whatever that is, and that's just exaggerating the problem. So
it seems like you're really good at looking at the final solution and then reverse engineering it down to the curriculum.
That's the only way you can go. That's the only way we can go. We have to look at what is the world that we want to create and what is the world that these children want to be living in. Then how do we give them everything that they need to be able to do that? And when we look at, trauma and how children are dealing with trauma, the definition of beauty, like looking at what makes them unique and different and making that a point of celebration, not a point of pain. Building their self-esteem, again, going back to, well, who are you and what do you stand for and what are your standards and how do you want people to see you? And teaching them all of these kind of skills, which all of us wish we had learned when we were that age, but giving them this really strong foundation so they can handle, whatever comes along, and puts them in a place of inspiration. So, really we're relying on these generations that are coming through to save the planet because we've royally screwed it up. Yeah,
it's sad. We had this one woman, plastic-free Mermaid, on, and she's been plastic-free for 10 years. And it was it's very cool when you see people just living it, right? They're not talking about it. They're not posting about it. They're living it. They're literally breathing it day by day. And it's just making a change starts with people just putting it into motion. And then I am always fascinated, and because I'm learning more about this law of attraction world more and more every day. I'm trying to step into my power, eliminate the lies I've made to myself. And the listeners are probably, there's every one of us has told ourselves that we're not capable of some certain attribute, right? That we're not good enough, that we're not, whatever the X amount is. I'm just trying to rewire my brain to step into my power. There's this quote, I mentioned it in a few episodes before, but it was basically saying the worst day in your life is the day you come face to face with the person you could have been. And I always think to myself, it's like, wow, you are good enough. You are strong enough. You could be a top 10 podcast in the world. You could have Natalie Ledwell on from my movies on the show. You could live in Venice. You could do this. You could change the world. You could actually make actionable change. All of those thoughts all start with surrounding yourself with good people, mind movies. And it fascinates me how little we have control over minds. And when I don't have control over my minds, I feel like I'm breaking down.
Well, we run on default most of the time. So what we do know also through epigenetics and other new sciences that are coming out is that when we're between the ages of, say, 2 and 6 or 7, our brains are predominantly in theta brainwave activity. Like I was saying before, this is when I do my little asking, But what happens is when we're in theta brainwave activity, it's like we're sponges. And we're absorbing things around us. And as children, part of our developmental stage at this age is that we're trying to figure out, who we are, where we fit into the world, and then all the beliefs and the programs that we have about money, self-worth, self-image, love, that's been modeled around us by our parents, our family and everything just gets stored into our subconscious mind as a belief. So if a child was told, you're so stupid, you'll never amount to anything, and it has a strong emotional attachment to it that gets stored as a belief. And so when they're moving through life, they're always looking through the lens of, I'm stupid and I'm never going to amount to anything. So even though consciously and logically we'll be, striving to be more successful, this little program that has hundreds of thoughts attached to it and hundreds of the debilitating behaviors that are attached to it, is going to keep you in that truth that it believes is truth that you took on when you were 4, is now running your life. Okay, so and this is another purpose of my movies, is to help us to overcome that thinking, because these thoughts that travel along from the subconscious to the conscious mind travel along what we call neural pathways. So the more often we think a thought, the stronger that neural pathway. So we need to overcome this. And the more that you can very vividly already see yourself living this new life, taking these new actions, getting these different results, the subconscious mind doesn't really know the difference between what we see through our eyes and what we play as a very vivid movie, feeling what it's like to be there in our subconscious mind. So what happens is it starts to go, oh, okay, this is our reality. Okay, so then it starts to change your thoughts that are more in alignment with that. And when your thoughts are more in alignment with this new future, what it's doing is automatically affecting your actions. So now all of a sudden you're finding it's easier to get out of bed and exercise in the morning, or it's easier for you to make healthy choices, or it's easier for you to go in and, ace that interview or whatever that is, because your thoughts are in alignment with that. So when you have the trifecta, which is thoughts, actions, and emotions, all in alignment with this future, you are basically a homing beacon for everything that you need to make that a reality.
Imagine living in a world where this is taught to everyone at day one. That's the wave. This whole Mind Movies, Joe Dispenza deal, and like what you guys are working on, that's the future. That is like a home run future of what's going on. It's something that you can get behind. I mean, to me, it's like if you don't believe this stuff, you're almost just being ignorant to the uncomfortableness of the idea. Because even if you fail trying, you're going to learn something in the process. Trying to rewire your brain, trying to be happier, trying to just find joy and that inner childlike enthusiasm in all of us. I mean, that's something that I get angry at myself about sometimes when I take things too serious. Because too much time is wasted thinking about unneeded BS from someone else's life and not connecting with who we really are.
Yeah. And you think about it, if we're on default, most of the thoughts or the things that we're saying are not really our thoughts and our words anyway. How many times I know that, like my brothers and sisters, they'll find themselves when they're parenting that something mum and dad would say will come out of their mouth. They're like, oh my God, that was my mum, because we go on default. So having mindful moments, being aware of, what it is that you're thinking and doing and doing something like a mind movie, and watching it on a daily basis really helps you to shift that as well.
So it seems pretty apparent that you're onto something pretty amazing here. How do you scale something to like you have right now? What goes into that process to maybe potentially impact, 10 million people in the next 5 years? Do you have a specific goal for what you guys are trying to do with that?
Yeah, we're doing everything. So, so I'm very fortunate that my role in the company is I'm the face or I'm the voice. I'm the one that's out there and in the programs and all the videos that are online. And my ex-husband, who's my business partner, Glenn, he's the marketing genius. But marketing is his passion, and so he tends a lot of high-end masterminds now. So any of the new techniques that are coming out, we're very fast to adopt those kind of things. We have an amazing team. And from even the beginning, when we were struggling, just the three of us in the bedroom, we would, have these little conversations about what life was like now that the launch was a success. And we always talked about building this incredible team. So, but we do everything. We have the email database. We have, I do live Facebook things. We do a lot of ads online. I'm just about to start a podcast. So there's all these different ways that we're out there that I'm hoping that we can get to meet all of these people and reach them wherever they are in the world. And remember, online means global. So we have clients all over the world, literally all over the world.
That's so cool. There's been so much amazing, unreal stories. And once you hear a story that's so close to you, you have no choice but to start to believe, right? I feel like that's any thought, any story. Stories are a business is essentially a story structured into a actionable way of receiving and transacting money. But you're selling a story. You know, believing in anything is the beginning of a story. Is there a certain story that you can recall through your mind movies that has just floored you? Like you couldn't believe it, something that happened, that someone used your mind movies and they'd had some crazy medical breakthrough, or something that really touched your heart that you can pinpoint on?
I mean, we have them every day. And I think the one that I saw just recently, this woman was creating paintings that she was selling to raise money for this African village that she was working with. And she had made a mind movie the year before and was able to sell the paintings. And then she, made another mind movie and she created the paintings, but they weren't selling. So she went back and edited the mind movie and said, the paintings are selling fast. And that afternoon she sold 3 paintings. So we've had an amazing woman in Australia who she was at a Dr. Joe event, and her and her husband were struggling financially. And so they decided to sell their house, and had been on the market for a month, and they did not have one offer on the house. And so how Dr. Joe uses mind movies is that he'll, we watch our mind movie, we're watching a kaleidoscope, so we're shutting down our analytical mind, we're straight into suggestible mind. So everything we're seeing in our mind movie is going straight into the subconscious. But then we go into a meditation and we're choosing a scene from our mind movie. And we're creating that scene while we're coherent with a unified field, meaning that we're actually creating the event. And I know that's probably a very big concept I just dropped casually there, but this woman, when she's doing this exercise, she's in her living room. She can feel the pen in her hand. She's signing the contract. She can smell the real estate agent's aftershave. She can feel the bubbles of the champagne on her nose. She can taste the champagne, and she's just feeling relief. She's feeling just relief and free because finally the house is sold and they can, eliminate the debt. And so that night when she went back to her hotel room, she had a text message from her husband, and he goes, "You're not going to believe this. We've got an offer on the house." He goes, "But it's not for the amount that we want, but I think we should take it." And she goes, "Nope. She goes, "Just wait." So the next day when we're doing the exercise again, this time she sees the amount on the contract. And about 4 days later, they got the amount that they wanted.
I think there's a big misconception when people that don't go too deep into this topic, they think, law of attraction. If I just think everything's going to be good, my whole life's going to change. But a lot of times people forget the action component of that. Can you speak on how important it is, obviously, to be and learn the law of attraction, but also to take action, throw the Hail Marys out there that could potentially plant the seeds and start watering those things while you're praying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, action is exceptionally important. And I believe that there is no such thing as the wrong action. I mean, any action is the right action, because even though it may not be the place that you end up, it's going to lead you to the place that you end up. Always. It always does that. And I remember, if we go back to 2006, I felt like Glenn and I were like a car up on a jack, and the wheels are spinning because we've got action for businesses. Action was not our problem. But it wasn't until we started to combine all of the business acumen that we had, everything that we knew about business, and we were really good at running a business. But once we combined that with the concepts of law of attraction, that jack came out and we just took off. I mean, we have had the most financially, spiritually, mentally, physically rewarding years of our life since we started applying the law of attraction to what we already know from business. And it wasn't like we went, okay, we've got this idea, mind movies. We spent at least 4 months working for 12 hours a day from our bedrooms, trying to get this thing off the ground. We were committed. We were all in. Like if it hadn't worked, we were toast. 120 grand on credit cards, and that's not the car repayments and the house mortgage and everything we have back in Australia. That's just credit cards. So, you have to have this commitment. You have to have this really strong intention. You have to stay the course. And I think one of the things that was really important for us is that when we came across challenges, which, believe me, I've glossed over a couple of them. Everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong for that launch. mantra was always, well, what is the solution to this challenge? Not, is there a solution or can we get through this? It's like, well, which one are we going to choose? We fully believed that there was always more than one solution to every challenge. And we just had to find the one that we were going to apply right now to be able to move through this. So, by doing that, you're shifting your perspective and your energy to going, I don't know if we're going to get through this, to, well, of course we're going to get through it. So what solution are we going to use right now?
It's just when you say that, I feel like a burden takes off my shoulders, and you're just talking about it. When you talk about what's possible, everything just starts working better. Like, what are the solutions? Like, if you were on a startup, we work with a startup, TrueFace, and there's, every startup's going to have fires every day. They say a CEO is like a glorified janitor. They're just putting out fires. You become comfortable in the chaos because that's the point. You're always challenging, you're always breaking, and when you do good, you're going to screw up because you're going to try something new, but you're always learning. You talk about all these challenges that you've overcame throughout that process. Was there a certain time that you can recollect that maybe you hit the lowest of the low, rock bottom per se, that specifically maybe XXX happened?
Yeah. So we ended up doing like a $700,000 launch with My Movies at that time, which was like far exceeded anyone's expectation. Anyone that we knew asked, like, our target was $1 million in our My Movie that we created for that launch, and that was just really ambitious. But 700,000, we're kind of happy with it. But we had to use PayPal as our payment gateway because we're Australian, when our company's in Australia. And because of the economic crisis and a whole bunch of stuff that was going on, they froze the account. So we couldn't actually get to the money. They were able to release a couple $100,000 so we could pay postage because we had CDs back then. We were able to pay the JV managers and the guys that worked on a percentage of the launch. But when we went back to Australia, we had $500,000 sitting in that account. And every time they said they were going to release the money, they changed their mind. And so we went through 6 months of, we couldn't pay our affiliates. We had to take out a loan in Glenn's dad's name so that we could, pay them some. We were just struggling to keep our head above water. And the frustrating part is that we knew we had $500,000 sitting in the bank and we couldn't do anything about it.
They just wouldn't release it.
Yeah. And
is that common?
Well...
Now
it is, and we knew that this was a risk, but it just went on for too long. And then finally we had to get an attorney involved, and they finally released the funds. But there was some dark days there. It was like
damn. Come on! I just did all of this.
And it's our first campaign, and we're all these affiliates. First campaign for us, we can't even pay them.
It'd be like having a baby in your belly for 9 months and not being able to meet it for 6 months after.
Yeah.
Like, what's up? What's going on here?
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah, that was tough.
And all your experiences, I mean, you've started your first business technically at 21, would you say? Is when you first became an owner and manager of these gyms and clubs?
Yeah, so I was managing businesses from the age of 21. Yeah.
And the answer to this shouldn't be, I wouldn't change anything, because that's a lame answer.
Mm-hmm.
But it is always interesting to think, if you could have gone back and spoken to the 16-year-old you, and you could have maybe told her 1, 2, or 3 things, and just that would have saved you a ton of time, money, tears, heartache, and just take one more wrinkle out, right?
Mm-hmm.
What maybe would have been some of those things you would tell?
I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned just recently, and it's taken me a long time. I'm 50 now, so
Diane,
what? Yeah.
It's a lie. You're lying.
It's about time I learned this one, but relaxing into knowing that everything is happening for my highest good, even when it doesn't look like it is. When I look at, times where I was forcing things or trying to make things happen and I was really stressful and things weren't going well and I didn't feel like I was in flow, it was because I was trying to make things happen because I wasn't happy with what was showing up. Rather than not being happy with it, what I should have been doing is going, well, wait a minute, if this is happening for me, what am I meant to learn? How am I meant to grow? How am I meant to expand from this experience so that I can become the person I need to be to step into this bigger role that I want to step into? And it's only been recently that I've got really comfortable with doing that. It's one of the biggest lessons I've learned in recent years that's made a massive difference for me.
Because every day you're going to face a new challenge. Is there any other things that you can think about? Because there's people right now that are like 18, 19 even listening to this. And there's also people that, are in their 80s. They're all over. Everyone's just looking to enjoy life and embrace it. Get into flow. I love that word, flow.
Yeah.
It'd be such a great name for a company. Just flow.
Well, I think when I was that age, I thought I knew everything.
Right.
So, that was a mistake. Surrounding yourself with the right people is huge. Don't be the smartest person in the room. And don't think you're the smartest person in the room when you're not. And always, and
I love your laugh. It's so...
Because, that happened a few times. But also getting comfortable with asking for help is a big deal about anything, whether it's support, whether it's advice, looking to people who've done it before you, and being open to, some kind of lateral, out of the box, different ways of doing things. I think part of the reason we were so successful with my movies is because we were a little oblivious and ignorant in the beginning. We didn't know what we didn't know. So we just did what we thought. It's again, like with this coming into the education system, I don't know the system. And that's working in my advantage because now I'm not compelled to be feeling like I have to do it a certain way because everyone else does it that way. I'm just making up my own rules. And it's working to my advantage. And I think that's a really good place to operate anything from. Like, don't do it because everyone else is doing it. And really, align yourself with people that you can ask advice from and be comfortable in asking for advice or asking for help. I think it's really important because no one does it on their own.
Right.
No one.
It's so true. And then in creating an environment to be able to align yourself with people too. For me, I love doing dinners, and I hope that you'll come to one of my next ones.
I would love to.
But I do family dinners, I call them. We invite 25, 30 friends. I cook for everyone, make some bomb food, whether it be some salmon. I think we're going to do some honey roasted salmon and or a Mexican night and margaritas. And just bring people. And basically, it's kind of like a friend bring friend. If you want to bring a friend over. And just we'll meet people, eat, and good things happen when you provide food and a good vibe, you know? But it's those times when you can really just connect people. And that's really one of the biggest motives behind this podcast is connecting people. It's something that I love the most is connecting good people with good people. I know there's some people out there that are going to resonate so strongly with your story that your story is going to push them over the edge. I mean, you do this every day, you know it. This is just part of your daily nature. So, I mean, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's just amazing what you're doing. Mind Movies is such a hit. Your internet marketing experience, I could talk to you forever about. I may afterwards. And just your good vibes and good attitude. I just think that there's so much. You better not stop. You better keep going, girl.
No, and one thing I did want to say about that is that I do get the opportunity often to be invited into, dinners and groups and things like that. And the one piece of information, advice I have about those situations is sometimes we'll go into them going, oh, I wonder if they'll like me. And, and sometimes we try and talk ourselves up because we want to seem like we're important. And, I never go into those situations like that. My question is, who's the most interesting person I'm going to meet tonight? And when I'm in an engagement with them, I'm giving them 100% of my focus. I'm asking questions. I'm getting curious. I'm not there to big note myself. I'm there to really, make this connection because, you have no idea how casually in conversation someone might say something and something in the back of your subconscious mind is going to go, what? That's going to solve this particular thing that I had going, and it's just because you're paying 1,000%, you're engaged, you're curious, and you're committed to making a connection rather than, having to sell yourself.
That's a great philosophy because people stimulate ideas. Something someone says about cooking the French fry could trigger, oh my gosh, we got to expand to the Ukraine. Yeah. Next thing you know, you send out that email. You told me recently you had you don't have to talk about the specific person that reached out, but just you've been doing your law of attraction thing, you've been doing your Mind Movies things, and you have potential to talk to one of the largest publishers in the education space on the planet. Yeah.
And that's, I got that connection through a girlfriend who I haven't seen for like 10 years, but we know through business and through this industry. And again, I hadn't seen her for a long time. And, I could have sat in the moment when I saw her and made up a whole story in my head about why I thought I hadn't seen her or why she hadn't reached out to me. But I don't do that. I'm like, well, I'm here in this moment. So we started talking and she's like, oh, I should introduce you to such and such. I'm like, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much. Yes.
That's the Hail Mary thing.
Yeah.
Everybody in your life, you never know who they know.
Absolutely.
There's a saying we say in network marketing: every dud leads to a stud, and every jabroni leads to a homie.
Right.
You know, treat everybody with 100%, and make them convince you that you got to take anything out. Be optimistic. Be full. Right. I try this every day. I don't always practice what I preach, but I know that by continuously working on it, we will. And I'm excited to get started on my mind movie. And now I have to, and I have to show it to you. And I'm excited to get graded by you. It'll be fun.
Well, I don't grade you, but I love watching people's mind movies. And I do encourage them to send them to me because, first of all, it makes them accountable to do it.
That's the biggest reason right there.
Which is huge. But sometimes you'll be, I had someone send me their mind movie the other day and they said something about breaking through fear. And I'm like, well, we need to change that. We don't want to be listing what it is that we don't want. Let's not have fear, the word fear, as part of an affirmation. Let's, change that into what it is that we do want. That we break, that we move through life with ease and grace. So we're always in flow, or we always get to our end result rather than having to break through fear, because then all your mind is focusing on is fear.
Fear is the tough. I love the Joseph Campbell quote: "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures that you seek." Mm-hmm. The secret is something that we always got to rewatch like once a month. Big shout out to my friends Casey and Kylie Thibodeau, definitions of people that implemented law of attraction. About a year ago, they were, barely making ends meet, decided to go all in, work from home, and now, they were full-time, living from home wherever they want. The sweetest girls. They did a video every day on Facebook Live for 2 years. Every day, whether they're sick, whether they're sad, just every day they showed up. And eventually people started coming.
Yeah.
It's amazing that happens if you're consistent, you don't give up, and you have good intentions, which is a great point of your entire story. So in conclusion, something I'm always very curious about is if you were speaking to the entrepreneur that maybe right now has a full-time job, they love it, or they're in a position where they don't feel like they're growing, but they really want to jump into entrepreneurship for the first time, or they just want to go move to South Africa and raise cheetahs, whatever it be. Mm-hmm. They want to jump into it, but they're scared. What would you tell that person to get them over the fence?
I think that it's right that they should be scared. If you don't have some amount of fear or, about going into a big change like this, then, the goal that you have isn't big enough, or you're not really thinking clearly. And I do coach a lot of people through this who are looking at stepping into business out of getting in a career. And I'm like, look, the first thing you have to do is make sure that you're not, that you look after the basics. If you have to work a little bit more longer in the job to build a business to get to that point, then do that. Because if you're worrying about surviving and where you're going to eat and, how you're going to pay the bills, then you are in the wrong frequency to be building a business. You need to be in that higher frequency. You need to feel like that everything's being looked after. And then when you're applying all of these other things that we talked about today, you're guaranteed success.
It's the blueprint. And how can people go and find Mind Movies and create their own?
So if you just go to mindmovies.com, you'll be able to find all about, the Mind Movies there, and a whole bunch of programs and things that we have. The inspiration shows, some older episodes are up there. So, and I'm friends with now.
You've interviewed some pretty phenomenal people.
Wow, I know. I had one of these full circle moments the other day where I'm part of the Transformational Leader Council. And I was emceeing, and they had their 15-year anniversary. And I was able to tell my Mind Movie story and go, guys, through your influence, because The Secret was filmed at a TLC meeting, I said, I've reached nearly 6 million people, and that's just me. And I go, so I get to say thank you, because these are my peers, these are my friends, and say, look, what you're doing is amazing. And anyone that's listening, and for you, the amount of people that you get to influence, who they then get to influence. We need to create this positive tsunami around the world. Positive
tsunami. The ripple effect's huge.
Yeah.
And if people want to reach out directly to you, should they just message you on Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram. Or if you go to natalieledwell.com, you can sort of send me a direct message through that as well.
Beautiful. Natalie, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. The team over at Len Jones Party of Two. It's a damn good day to have a damn good day. And I'm really looking forward to the next dinner.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Len Jones Party of Two. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review and subscribe to stay up to date on our new episodes. And remember, hope is not a strategy. Keep making moves. Till next time, peace.